Man, I hit the record button in one try. Who would have thought? I'm that good. Oh, hello, this is on. Hey, hi, hello. Welcome.
Oh my god, I cannot even.
We had a lot of goof ups trying to record this episode by me not being able to hit a record button.
Right now.
Right now. Oh, man. Hey, Al.
Hi.
You know what people have been missing in their life?
Us?
Yes.
Yeah.
But what else? You're right. It's E3.
Ugh!
But
Out
also
there.
maybe some Otome.
Lots of atone.
And that is exactly what we are going to discuss here on episode of the Seasonal Anime Checkup OVA.
We forgot to check, didn't we?
Yep.
Whoops.
I'm going to do that right now. Hey, I'm Jared. That's my name. I'm joined, as always, by the Queen of Otome, Doc Al herself, and Ladium.
Hello.
And we got quite a few things to talk to you about today.
Phew.
Here on episode 78!
78.
78!
Jeez. Wow.
So yeah, we got, like we said, quite a few things to talk to you about. We got a game we're going to talk to you about, which I think we discussed this last week. That was going to be our preview.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we gave the actual name of it, but that's okay.
Also, something just kind of came out of the blue.
Fell into our laps.
And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about an OVA episode that just magically appeared last week out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we will conclude the episode with some E3 predictions, because by the time this episode goes up, it'll be 2 hours until E3 kind of technically begins. At least press conferences begin. Because I guess E3 doesn't technically begin until Tuesday, but E3 press conferences will begin in 2 hours when the episode goes up. So we'll talk about some predictions about what we think might show up, or at least announcements, or at least something that hasn't been leaked.
Mm-hmm.
But to begin with, let's talk about that OVA episode that kind of just dropped out of the blue last Tuesday, I want to say.
Yes, it was Tuesday because you mentioned it and my brother was in town. I was like, oh God, what do I do?
So, if you remember from previous episodes of this very podcast, we have talked about Code Realize to an extent. We've talked about the game, the anime, and the fan disc. And last Tuesday, the OVA for the anime dropped on Crunchyroll, surprisingly, because sometimes OVAs just don't necessarily make it to streaming sites that, have licensed out the regular season, per se. So it's always kind of a surprise when OVAs show up. But yeah, that came out. I don't even remember if we knew that was a thing or not.
I had no idea an OVA was coming.
I can't remember if I had seen that and knew that was a thing, or if it was just like, here's an OVA.
Which, Code Realize remains one of my top tier otome, so I was real stoked about this.
And it was just interesting as well to come up with an idea of okay, obviously the anime did its own thing per se by mostly following the Lupin storyline, but what's the OVA going to do? I was kind of under the impression that it would be something from the fan disc.
That's what I thought.
But that's not the case.
It's a completely unique story.
It is its own original thing that follows the events of the anime. So that's very interesting that, they have a wide variety of material that they could have used, but I guess it makes sense that maybe they don't want to use that because, even though those stories in the fan disc were shorter by comparison to the original game in terms of the specific characters, it's probably not going to come off as well if it's jammed into 24 minutes compared to they could extend that out a bit more. But it's cool that they did their own thing.
Yeah, I was happy with it.
Yeah, so the OVA entitled, where is it?
Set a thief to catch a thief.
Set a thief to catch a thief.
It's bad that I remembered that off the top of my head.
So this takes place a month after the end of Code Realize, the anime.
Right.
And there's going to be a big ceremony held at Buckingham Palace.
Mhm.
Because they're like, hey, things are okay now. Yay.
Yay.
And it's also coming up on Cardia's birthday.
Mhm.
So everyone's like, well, we should go get her something. Like, that would be a good thing to do. So the boys go out and try and find some gifts for her. Lupin is like, oh, man, I found this really cool thing. Where did you come from? Why are you getting that? That's not fair.
Yeah, he sees like this really pretty jewel and he's like reaching for it. And then Saint Germain reaches in and he's like, oh, you have good taste. I'm like, wow, man. Savage.
I think it's even funny because Lupin's like, you realize it's like a woman's, right? And he's like, yeah, yes, I'm aware. I will still buy it. I am a wealthy landowner. Do not question me.
Right, like as if anybody would ever question his taste in picking up random things because like it's Saint Germain.
And this basically just repeats ad nauseum with everyone.
Yeah,
getting
like
things that
Van Helsing buys her a dress. Impy buys her like a pan for cooking.
Yeah.
I can't remember what Victor bought her.
I don't
I'm
either.
blanking.
Was it like food?
I mean, I'd be happy if he brought me food. Honestly, out of all the things that like they were giving, if somebody brought me food, I'd be the happiest.
So yeah, he gets real bummed about that.
Also, worth mentioning that basically this OVA is like the expansion of Cardia's wardrobe.
Yes, because she gets like 3 different dresses or something in this episode.
It's crazy.
She has so many new outfits.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, he's really, really bummed. Which, like, again, they're married at this point.
Yeah, it's like, you're gonna be fine, buddy.
Yeah.
So like he's sitting on a bench real bummed. There's like this shady person comes like, what are you buying? I got this jewel. Maybe you'll want it.
To celebrate our meeting.
Here you go. Peace out later. I'm
And then
totally not a French ninja.
He gets tackled by the
Scotland Yard.
There you go.
And they throw him in jail.
Yep.
He's like, what just happened?
He's like, if I were to steal something, it would be better than that.
Yeah. So the rest of them get the news that Lupin's in jail. They're like, what? And also, hey, we can't tell Cardia about this.
Yeah. They decide to keep it a secret from Cardia.
So they plan this idea of like, we're going to break him out. And then they send Lupin like a lunch. And it's like, hey, it's one of the fancy lunches, wink, wink. And he uses it to make an escape route, but the thing is like explodes like extremely huge.
Yeah,
and
Impy's like, oh my god, that isn't subtle at all. I didn't put that much gunpowder in. Van Helsing's like, I did.
I was the one who cooked this up, and they're like, oh no.
The bad cooking strikes again.
So he runs out, and like they're able to like the cops are able to find him, but then he is helped out by an unlikely ally.
He like basically karate chops that dude in the back of the neck.
Yeah.
So Sholmes.
Excuse me, Sholme?
Sholme, sorry.
Please
Sholme.
get the pronunciation right.
Let's be real. It would be Sholmes.
I mean, yeah, of course.
They just had to add that accent.
Sholme.
Oh my god. So yeah, Herlock, he's there. And he's like, hey buddy, what up?
I'm gonna get you out of here. And
Follow
Lupin's just
me.
like, what? I don't trust you.
Yeah, it's which like these two together interacting is always really a fun ride.
Yeah. So let's just call him Sherlock because that's who he is. Let's be real.
He's Sherlock Holmes, yeah.
So he takes him to like this hotel room and is like, hey, I'm going to keep you here. We're going to hide out for a bit and then wait for things to calm down. And then, we're going to basically make the person who set you up come out of hiding. Mm-hmm. And then basically around the time they realize that someone else has assumed Lupin's identity and is like being real bad about it. And also they learn that this is probably the work of a French gang of, they look like ninjas.
They look like ninja.
They are the Loup Noirs, the Black Wolves.
Yep.
and they had a run-in with Lupin in France, and he stole like a bunch of money from them, so they're out for revenge.
Also, at one point, actually, there are several points that Lupin is having like hissy fits, and during one of them, he's like, "This outfit goes against my aesthetic," because he's wearing the prison outfit.
This is not with my aesthetic.
So he gets like regular clothes at one point, like just pants and a shirt. And one of his, he grumps a few times, but that was one of them. He's like, "This is not my aesthetic."
Forgot about that. So everyone else is like, they realize like, oh man, he's something happened, so he's in hiding. We still can't tell Cardia, but she's like, I think she noticed at one point like the police are like around the mansion.
Yeah.
But then like Drakshon's like, hey, let's get you out of here. So the other two are still in hiding. There's at one point Sherlock's holding a newspaper, and on the back of it is just like, hey, we're looking for inexperienced animators.
That was really funny. And
what better way to advertise that you have job openings than in an anime?
That was so funny. I loved it. And it was like poorly translated at one point. It was awesome. But Lupin is basically like mad at this point. He's like, all you do is read newspapers.
And then like it's like basically at that point, like Sherlock's like, yeah, the reason I'm reading the newspaper is because someone's going to send us a message, you dummy. Yeah. Here's the message.
And I was trying to figure out, like, they only have one hotel room and they have one bed, so are they like sleeping in that bed together?
Unless Sherlock's not staying there.
Well, Sherlock says he's staying there because he didn't feel comfortable going back to his apartment like while he was there. Basically, wanted to keep an eye on him.
I guess someone is sleeping on the floor.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they're spooning.
That's some fanfic you can find on archiveofourown.org. So look for that.
I'll pass on that one. I mean, I love their banter, but
I mean, you know that's probably a thing.
Oh, I guarantee it is, because they have any form of relationship whatsoever, and so of course somebody ships them.
But yeah, they eventually figure out like, oh, the leader of the Black Wolves has made their move, and we're gonna go find them.
And then this part was also really funny because they get him a replacement outfit that's exactly like his other outfit, and Lupin tells Sherlock, he's like, "Man, you have a good tailor. They did it perfect.
It fits perfectly."
Yeah, it's like, wow, dude. Like, how do you know all this stuff? How do you get that outfit?
Maybe they were bored, and Sherlock's like, "Hey, look, I gotta take your measurements to get you a new suit. Like, let's just do this."
Maybe.
I'll send them to my tailor.
They're not doing anything else but reading newspapers and.
They have all the time in the world to do that.
Makes sense.
So like they go to like, I think is it the final fight's like in a train yard?
It's in like a back alley type area, so it might be a train yard. I can't honestly tell.
But yeah, like they have a showdown with this gang and then beat them up pretty much by outsmarting them and all that stuff. And
then there's a part where it gets a little shady, and then you just see like test tubes come flying in. It was pretty rad. I was like, oh, the best boy has arrived.
Because I think at that point it's like they have the gang surrounding them, and then like the cops show up as well.
Yeah.
And then test tubes take out the cops so they can take care of the gang.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that.
They do.
Everything's hunky dory. And then they're able to settle things with the cops. They're like, hey, I didn't steal that, you dummies.
These guys did.
Take
them. And
then basically we flash forward to the ceremony.
Well, because they said that the reason the jewel was important was because it was supposed to be set into a medal for somebody at the ceremony at Buckingham Palace.
You are correct. So yeah, Queen Victoria's there. Everyone else is there. And then Queen Victoria's like giving an award to Cardia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a necklace type thing. And then Lupin notices like, oh, hey, that's the jewel. It's like, wait a minute.
She's like, a lady can't wear a medal.
She gets a necklace. And then basically the end of the episode is like Lupin being real bummed that he couldn't give Cardia a gift, and Cardia's like, it's whatever, dude. She smooches him, and then basically they probably just go to the Bone Zone.
Probably. I mean, we did play the fan disc, and
They definitely go to the Bone Zone there.
oh yeah. Which at one point in the ceremony, like Sherlock shows up and he's like, "Hey dudes, that was awesome, good job." And Lupin's like, "Are you not gonna try and arrest me?" He's like, "Nah, man.
We're
Just
friends.
it's a good day. I'll do it another day, but right now, nah. Go have fun."
And he gives like flowers to Cardia.
Yeah.
It's like, here
So
you go.
literally everybody gives her a gift, but Lupin.
I mean, Lupin gives her a gift, if you know what I'm saying.
The D.
The D.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the Code Realize OVA. It ends with the Bone Zone, which, of course, I mean that's perfect sense for this series.
Oh yeah, totally. I believe it.
But yeah, it was real fun. Like I really enjoyed going back to that world and like getting to hear that opening and ending again. Like that was real great.
So good.
And it's a story that fits within like I can see that happening with all those characters. Like that's a plausible scenario that I can see play out.
Yeah, literally everything that happens in that episode. Like Van Helsing helping the gunpowder. Yes, totally. Like the banter between Sherlock and Lupin is absolutely wonderful. Like that is the highlight of the episode. Is just the two of them interacting. It's great. It's a good episode. I was really happy about the OVA.
Yeah, same here.
And the ad for the animator was pretty hilarious.
So yeah, if you watched the anime or you played the game, like definitely check this out. But that is not all the Otome we're going to talk about today.
It's not. You ready for some craziness?
Let's dive into the world of actual playable Otome, as Al has played the latest release of Otome.
Yeah, I have.
Entitled 7'Scarlet.
7'Scarlet. It's 7'Scarlet. They say it in the
Scarlet.
They say it in the title screen. 7'Scarlet.
7'Scarlet.
Which I never really figured out what. I guess I know sort of what the title's referring to, but not really.
Can I tell you my favorite thing about this game that I've never played?
Sure.
That you obviously know about.
Yes.
This game's got f***ing FNV!
Yes, it does!
Holy
It has several FMV, and I was like, what?
That's awesome.
This never happens in Otome.
It's so
ever.
awesome.
Like, there are several FMV in this. I'm like, wow, guys. Like, I'm impressed. And they're, like, decent quality FMV. It's not like, Resident Evil 1 FMV.
I really, really want some company to make an FMV Otome game.
I mean, I'd play it.
Man, that would be, I mean, obviously it'd probably be real bad because FMV games they're always real cheesy.
Yeah.
But man.
I was really, really impressed though. I mean, it was shocking. Truly, truly shocking to me. Like I remember that it happened the first time and I texted you. I was like, what?
I know. I was like,
is this?
You told me that. I was like, wait, what? It's amazing.
It was great. So I guess spoiler warning for 7'Scarlet if you haven't played it yet. Because I'm pretty much gonna go into all the twists and turns and fun shenanigans you can get up to in there. I guess I could tell like the general story and then give you like a real spoiler alert.
Sure, we can do that.
And you skip ahead to either if you want to skip all the other stuff. But so the general gist of the story is that you're playing as Ichiko. Ichiko? I don't know how to pronounce Japanese things.
That sounds right.
Ichiko. And she is a 20-year-old college student, and her brother went missing a year prior. And so she's having issues focusing, and she keeps thinking about the town that he went to and like what happened at the town. And she finds out that her best friend, who is named Hino, which he's got that weird peace shirt on. He's the childhood best friend, and he is involved with like a supernatural online website about the town. And basically the website, it has a bunch of members, and all they do is talk about the like weird stuff that happens around this town.
As you do.
Yeah, apparently. Um, because there's a lot of like weird rumors and legends about the town and all, and I can't remember the name of the town, and it doesn't really matter. It's not real. And so he says that the administrator of the group invited them to do an IRL meetup at the town.
I love IRL meetups.
Earl. And he's like, Ichiko, why don't you come with me? And then, we can do some investigation into what happened to your brother. And it seems like a good idea. And so that's the general gist of it, is that they go into the town and they meet up with the other members of the Supernatural Club, which, surprise, surprise, most of them are dateables. Woo! And what ensues is just like you end up dating the guys, and you have to go, you only have 2 routes at the beginning that you can go through. And as you keep playing through routes, you keep unlocking more guys and get more story.
Typical.
And yeah, actually, no, you can usually just like pick whoever you want.
Oh yeah, I guess that's fair.
But this one, like, they specifically want you to do it in a certain order. And I think that was a really smart idea, because the more that I was playing it, I'm like, oh, that's hinting at this. That's really interesting. And so I wanted to know what was going on. And you'd get some of that answered in the next route, but then they would keep adding on and adding on and adding on.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, really smart.
Yeah.
Because one, it made you date all the guys. So that's cool. But it was an interesting framing of the overall story. So, I like that.
Yeah.
Also, one thing that's worth noting is that each guy has his own opening and ending. Meaning that like the video and songs are different.
Right.
Which is not really something that I've ever seen. Like usually they show like the CGs throughout the story, and they do that at the end of here, but the song's usually the same.
Or if if anything, it's like, oh, their credit song is different. Like they don't necessarily change like the opening for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And the opening, some of them are like very small differences, but then some of them are massive differences. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work put into 7'Scarlet that I was not expecting. So I guess I'll just go in the order that I played them.
Okay.
Because the game kind of directs you to do so.
Right.
So I started with childhood best friend Hino, peace guy. He's fine. He's kind of like your like dorky, somewhat dumb, athletic best friend. And you vaguely know that like they've been friends since they were like in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had like a massive, massive crush on her, which she doesn't know about somehow, even though he's not subtle. And he's genuinely really trying to help her find her brother, because he also knew her brother and really liked him. And he has something to tell him, which if you've ever played Atome before, you always know that they always want to tell the brother or whatever, like that they're in love with the sister and get their approval. That's what they always do. So he's vague about it, but we know that's what's trying to happen. And essentially you're going through like the main route here, and you go on like the main street, and you're talking to people, and you find out like nobody knows anything about your brother. Like nobody knows about this guy who came, and that's a little suspect. And you end up meeting this one guy who looks like a human mullet version of Yu Narakami, which is fantastic. And he's a butthead to you. And you meet the child who runs his hotel. He is in middle school. And also there's another girl there that is basically like the waitress slash maid, etc. Um, the other datables aren't really important in Hino's story. They become important in other people's stories, but in Hino's it really doesn't matter. And so where it like gets a junction is that he invites you to the festival, the fireworks festival.
Classic.
Classic. So you go and he has that like weird yukata on that said like addiction lovers or something. Do you remember that? I sent you that
Yeah.
picture? Yeah. And
Oh.
so they're going around the fireworks festival and it gets to the point where he wants to do or she wants to do one of the like cork gun shooting games. And somebody teases him and is like, can't let the girl do that. You have to do that. You have to win her the prize. So he's like, okay, all right, I'll do this. I got this. And he starts like panicking a little, which is kind of odd.
I can't do it.
No, no, no. He starts like shaking and people are like,
What the?
is this okay? And then like he pulls the trigger on the cork gun and then just immediately passes out.
Um.
And one of the other datables is like a doctor in training. So he takes care of him and he checks him over and he's like, it's fine. He just had like PTSD flashback. Does he have any kind of issue with guns? And she can't remember. And so you're like, oh, that's weird.
Just a tad.
Eventually you find out that what happened was Ichiko and Hino were playing as kids, like elementary, middle school-ish. And there was this haunted house that all the school kids were talking about, like this house was haunted and, it was scary. Nobody went in there. And so they decided they were going to go in there together. Turns out that instead of it being haunted, a serial killer lived there. Yeah. So he takes Ichiko and puts like a blade to her throat, and he challenges Hino and like, there's a gun over there. I can cut her like butter, or you can shoot me and end it. Make your choice. And you have to consider like this is an elementary school kid. Like
Right.
that's terrifying. And so he's like losing his mind. He doesn't know what to do. And the brother comes in, takes the gun, shoots the guy, blows his head off. Understandable now why he has gun PTSD.
Yep.
So he kind of regrets that he wasn't able to like protect her. But at the same time he was a kid, so.
Right.
So he always says that, he can't live up to her brother because he was unable to protect her. So, you find out that like while they're staying in town, there have been bodies showing up. Mostly women.
Yikes.
Yeah. And you start hearing these stories about the revenants. And people are like, oh, that's just like one of the like occult supernatural stories that we always hear. And the story of the revenants is that people who die in that town after the rainy season come back to life. And in order to maintain that revenant life, they have to continue killing people. So when the dead bodies start appearing, people are like, revenant? Maybe?
Maybe it's this thing.
Yeah. And at one point, Ichiko and Hino are out like by the river that's at the hotel, and they see somebody, and
It's a ghost.
well, no, the person shoots Hino.
Ah.
He was trying to shoot her, but he shot Hino instead, and he gets shot in the thigh.
Ow.
Yeah, which can do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Thankfully it doesn't. He just bleeds a lot.
It's lost a lot of blood. It's fine.
Yeah, and so he's passed out and he's in the hospital because turns out that the middle schooler kid, his family runs a hospital in the area, and so that's helpful.
This middle schooler is well connected.
Dude, this middle schooler is insane. Like he does so much in the story. Like he's the student council president, even though he's in his first year of middle school. He's running the hotel, the front desk. He is, spoiler alert, the administrator of this supernatural occult website. Um, and he's also serving on the board of like the supervisors who's trying to run this like idol concert that's supposed to happen in town.
I can't believe Mari's in this game as well.
He's in middle school. It's gross. And also his family runs the hospital. So, I guess I forgot to mention the main character at one point. The reason they were out by the river is that she gets a letter that she thinks is from Hino. Obviously, it's from the guy who was trying to murder her.
Ghost letter.
And so while he's in the hospital and passed out, she's like, "All right, I'm gonna end this." And
Great idea.
right, super smart girl. And so she goes up into the forbidden zone of the town. It's called the Forbidden Zone.
All right.
And she finds this shrine, like it's a really old, decrepit shrine that she keeps having like dreams about. And in the shrine, she finds her older brother's jacket.
Dun dun dun.
And she's like, "Oh, what is this?" And then a man in a black cloak and a cat mask appears behind her with a knife. And she's like, "What happened to my brother?" And he's like, "Oh, he's dead. He's long dead."
No, he's dead. No worries.
And he's like, "All right, I'm gonna really enjoy killing you." And he says some like really creepy stuff about like watching her scream and all that. It was awful. But anyway, there's this scene where she's trying to figure out what to do, and he hands her a gun. And he's like, "All right, shoot me.
Pew.
Why don't you do that?" And then here comes running Hino, who is still bloody and sweaty as heck, and he's like, "No." And so you have the choice at this point of whether or not you take the gun or you give the gun to Hino, and depending on which one you pick, you either get the good end or the bad end. If you keep it, he dies.
Who dies?
Hino.
Oh.
Yeah, childhood best friend dies if you keep the gun. But if you trust him and give him the gun,
should have kept that.
Then, well, I mean, what happens is that the gun's actually not loaded. And so in the bad end, she shoots and nothing comes out, and so he's like lunging after her, and Hino, instead of letting that happen, he just like body checks him, but they fall off the cliff. And so they never find his body, but he died.
Should just pistol whipped him. Whap.
So if you give it to Hino, then he feels like he like redeemed himself and was able to protect her. And the guy ends up falling. Hino doesn't, but the cat mask guy does. But they never find his body either in this story. So what they end up doing is they build like a tombstone for her brother, and they mourn him, and then they decide, all right, our time here is done. We don't really need to stay here anymore. So they leave and they date. So there's some questions there, but not as many as later. So then the next one that you do is Isora, and he is the high school chef that works at the hotel.
Hello, it's me. I'm a high school chef.
Yeah, he's like in his second or third year of high school. I can't remember. He's like 17, which is a little weird since she's 20, but I guess whatever. He's really, really flirty, and he is really obsessed with baking. And he single-handedly runs the cafe at the hotel. So, in this one, well, actually, in most of the routes, she mentions that she has a hatred of strawberries, which becomes important. Um, again, the cracking off, that's not the word I'm looking for. The branching off is the fireworks festival again. And so this time you go with him, Isora, and it doesn't go as poorly as the whole weird gun thing, but Isora ends up talking a lot about like this girl that he met when he was a kid and how she was the one who inspired him to start baking because she would eat all of his sweets, and it's kind of cute. But then he's also talking about like how there used to be this really big like hot springs area of the town, but it's all shut down because of the I forget the name of the town. Basically, they have like a big family in town who runs everything. Like they run the police force, they run the only hotel in town now. Like they own everything. So they ended up starting these rumors that the hot springs was poisoned, and that shuts down. And also, his family's restaurant shut down because they were in that area. And so his mom ends up working at the cafe under the family that she hates. And she gets sick. And so Isora takes over. So that's why he is where he is. He has a huge, huge grudge.
Huge grudge, man.
Yeah. This boy gets nuts. So there's this scene pretty early on in his route where you're hanging out with Hino. Again, he's your childhood best friend, so it makes sense. And he gets like hella jealous. Isora is so jealous, and it's really creepy. I sent you the video of this because they're like, hey, do you have any kind of snacks we can eat? And he brings out strawberry tarts and he's like, eat it. Eat it. Eat it.
Eat it.
And it's like, it was so creepy, like the way that he was saying it. I'm like, Jesus, dude, like calm down.
Do it.
And so she's like, oh, I can't eat the strawberry tart. I don't eat strawberries. And he's like, all right, I knew that. And so Hino's like, well, I'll just eat both then. But at one point he's like, maybe I'll just eat mine and then I'll give the cat that hangs out outside yours. Which I don't think cats eat strawberry, but whatever.
I can't remember a cat eating a strawberry, so.
I have two, and I've never had them be interested in strawberries.
Weirdos.
They're not normal, yeah. So the next day, everybody wakes up and they go into the garden of the hotel, and they find the cat, and the cat is like dead, like foaming at the mouth and like bleeding everywhere, and has a strawberry tart next to it.
Yikes.
Yep. And then she's like, oh God, Hino ate that. What do we do? And so she goes to check on him, and she finds out that he's in the hospital because he has stomach pains. And so then everybody's like, Isora, did you poison those? Did you do that? And
no. Why would you think that? That's crazy, dog. What?
He's like, no, I love baking and I love people eating my desserts. I would never taint them that way. And she's like, I believe you. And I'm like, girl, no, don't believe him. That's weird. Like that's real suspect.
Well, he said he loves baking, so clearly he's telling the truth.
Right. He's like, anybody who loves baking as much as he does and puts as much care into it can never poison somebody.
Did she also talk about like his masculine hands and then started getting off about his hands around that point?
Actually, he was the one that she thought had soft feminine hands.
Oh.
But he had long fingers and she liked that.
This girl's a weirdo. She has
a hand fetish. She mentions in every route, at least once a route, but sometimes more than once, about like their hands. And she'll specifically talk about like thick fingers, and she'll talk about like thin fingers and masculine hands and calluses and things. I'm like, girl, you got a problem.
I'm not here to kink shame anyone,
I'm here to
but
kink shame her.
this game is weird when it comes to hands.
It is weird. And like the cover, we were trying to figure out, we're like, what is that? And they were like, oh God, I should have known she had a hand fetish because there's hands on the cover. So I'm trying to remember exactly how this went down, but essentially, Ichiko at one point gets attacked the same kind of way that she does with Hino. And Isora's like, okay, no, this isn't going to happen. And so she wakes up and she's in a room. And it has one door and no windows and no clock, and she can't get out.
That's usually like, good.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, girl, you should probably run. Well, this is terrifying.
I don't think you're going to be able to run if you can't get out.
Shoot, find a way, man. Find some way. And at first she's like, this is great because, you know, he's a chef and she's getting all kinds of like neat foods and he's taking care of her. Oh, I remember how this happened. She was, the middle schooler got taken in a car. And she's chasing the car on foot, which is a bad idea. But she's chasing the car on foot. And then she's in, like, the hot springs area. And the guy in the cat mask shows up. And he's like, oh, finally, I found you. And he starts stepping on her leg and basically, like, messes it up pretty bad.
Ow.
Yeah. And so that's what happens is that Isora saves her from that. And then he takes her into the room to try and heal her leg. And so for the first few days, she's like, oh, you know, this is nice. Like, he's bathing me, and he's taking care of my leg, and he's feeding me. And she's like, have you told anybody that I'm here? And he's like, yeah, I told everybody. Everybody knows. Yeah.
I bet everyone knows.
And so she starts getting really, really creeped out by this, which, like...
As you should.
This should be very worrisome. And... So you get to the point where he goes outside for a seasoning that he forgot, and he leaves the door unlocked. And so you have the option of either staying in the room or leaving the room. If you leave the room, you die. Yeah, Catman kills you. If you stay in the room and trust him, then Catman still comes in there, but Isora comes back and he's like, I just got knocked out. I'm fine. Let's do this. And the room gets set on fire. And the Catman is coming at them with a knife. And Isora catches it with his hand. Which she freaks out at this point. Because she's like, no, that's what you bake with. And I'm like, homegirl, don't worry about the hand at this moment. Worry about getting out alive.
Not the hand.
And so essentially they end up like incapacitating this guy, and they flee, and the building's on fire, and like, yeah, so there was something there, but like we didn't find a cat mask. That's kind of weird. And it turns out in the good end that Isora actually did tell everybody that you were there.
It's shocking.
And it is very shocking. And that they knew you were there, that they knew you were being taken care of, but that they were afraid that after the incident with the leg that somebody was targeting you. And I'm like, wow, okay, so his like creepy lock you in a cage thing misguided, but worked sort of, except for, you know, the whole setting it on fire and getting your hand stabbed. I guess it's also, I forget at which point you learn this, but you find out that the girl who was eating his desserts as a child was Ichiko.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that she hates strawberries is that he made a dessert for her. I think it was like a shortcake or something. And he didn't realize that one of the strawberries was rotten because he was 5. And so she ate it, and then she got like food poisoning. And so she just had like an aversion to strawberries ever since. And so it became like his goal at the point to like fix that aversion because he felt like it was his fault. But this becomes a recurring theme that like everybody actually knew her as a kid, which pretty common in Otome. So anyway, they start dating. His route's pretty boring. I don't really like him. And then we get to the best boy of this one. Oh, I love him. I love him so much. So then the next route unlocks. And you get Toa.
Congratulations, you have met yourself.
Oh my god. Don't tell me my favorite guy and this is me.
It's true, though.
Okay. So you meet Toa for the first time when he's at a shrine. And he trips over nothing. And then he spills cat treats out of his pocket. And the cats just like swarm him. And the funniest thing is before this game came out, they posted that screenshot, that CG up on the Twitter. And you're like, that's the one you're going to date. I know which one you're going to date. It's the guy covered in cats. And he is amazing. He's so great. And so Toa has a really hard time talking to people, which, yeah. And everybody thinks that he's weird because he wears like that like traditional Japanese like overcoat thing, but he wears like the winter version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he just says like, oh, you know, it makes me feel comfortable. Like it was my grandpa's and I really love it. So I just wear it whenever I'm feeling nervous. And one of my favorite things that happens in all the routes is that they're all doing like this barbecue scene at one point, and things just keep going horribly wrong for him. And he's like, this is okay, right? Like at one point he drops some onions and they fall down the river, like go down the river while he was trying to wash them. He's like, we don't need that many onions, right? And then there's another part where like the cats steal the yakisoba and he's like, we don't need that, right? It just keeps happening. And speaking of cats, thank you. So Toa also does the fireworks festival. And he kind of gives you some insight into the town. For one thing, there is this like panda mascot for the town that they're trying to use to like create popularity of the town.
Yeah.
And it's a really popular mascot. And so he's explaining that like when the Hot Springs district was in trouble, that there was a small kid who designed the panda in order to try and fix it. But it never really caught on, and that somebody submitted it later on the internet and it became like this huge phenomenon. And so you learned the backstory about the panda there. And he tells her that he wants to take her to a certain place in order to see the fireworks better. And so he takes her to this like really neat overlook of the town, and they watch the fireworks, and she's like, wow, how did you know about this? And wow, his secret is that he grew up in this town.
What?
Wow. Ooh, surprise.
I never saw this coming.
He was bullied as a child, which he's adorable. So he's bullied as a child, and he hated the town, and he was miserable. And so his sister ended up submitting an application for him to basically leave, and so he does. And so he's been out of the town since he was like 14. I will explain what that application was for later. I mentioned it earlier in a bit, but there is also an idol who's doing a concert in the town.
Yes.
And the middle schooler is on the committee to like stage the concert. And they're doing it at the middle school gym. And people keep asking, like, why would the idol want to do this concert here? Because he's in this massive idol group that just broke up, and this is like his first debut as a solo artist. And like, why would he do it here? That doesn't make any sense. Ooh. There's a scene, and I think like the very first chapter of his route, maybe the second one. It's really, really early on, where there's a confusion over like which bath is men's bath and which bath is women's bath. And she's in there, and then she runs into somebody, and she looks up at him. She's like, "Wait a minute, that's Ato, the idol. Looks just like him. That's weird. Why would he be here?" And then he runs off. So, I wonder who Toa could be.
I wonder.
What happens if you rearrange Toa's name?
You get Oda.
So, yeah, he eventually reveals to you that he is Ato and that he's there to do the concert, but he doesn't want anybody to know. And there are like a few scenes where he like pulls his hair back so you can see his face, and he takes his glasses off. And he does say at one point that he cannot see without his glasses on. And he's like, well, you don't ever wear glasses on stage. How do you do that? And he's like, no, that's actually why I don't wear glasses on stage, is I can't see anybody.
Smart.
It's very smart. So Toa is there to do the concert, and again, the same situation keeps happening where people keep dying, and so
stop doing that.
Yeah, his manager's like, I don't know, man. I don't know that we should do this concert here because people keep dying, and I'm worried about your safety, and I'm worried about like people's safety. So we're gonna put a pause on this and see how this goes.
Smart.
And he's like, no, we have to do the show. We have to do the show.
Not smart.
We have to do it. And they end up in the Forbidden Zone too at one point. And I cannot remember why.
Oh, the Forbidden Zone.
The Forbidden Zone, yeah. Because he gets tackled by the defense force, which, by the way, the town has this shady cult defense force that's against the revenants, that they run around in black cloaks and they patrol the Forbidden Zones, and their entire goal is to kill the revenants.
God.
And so, oh, I remember why they're there. Okay, so he gets into a fight with his manager because she's trying to run Ichiko off and basically saying like, he's a womanizer, you're just like flavor of the month. I don't know why you think that you matter. And so Toa like loses his on her and is like, no, this isn't happening. And so they run off into the Forbidden Zone. That's how they get there. And Toa gets tackled by these like weird Defense Force cult people, and they lift up his shirt. And
you got a belly.
Well, they look at his back. And
got any lower back tattoos? Huh? Huh?
Do you have a tramp stamp? The doctor guy who is the next dateable shows up, and he's like, he's not one of them. You're fine. Let him go. And you're like, for one, why are you here? And why are you dealing with these people? And two, what the heck are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Turns out that one of the ways to see if somebody is a revenant is to look at their back. Because if they've killed somebody, that they get a purple mark for each kill that they've made.
Uh-huh.
So they thought he was a revenant, and they tackled him, and he had no marks. So they let him go. And basically, like, the same kind of shenanigans go down. He protects her from, like, Catman. And he keeps telling her that he needs to recharge whenever they kiss.
What?
Yeah, like, that's his thing, is he's like, I need to recharge. And so they like, kiss. He does it twice.
Okay.
It'll make sense later, trust me.
All right.
So, his story as a child is that he was being bullied, and Ichiko came up and was basically like, F you kids, this guy's great. And And she's like, so what do you do here? You just hang out? And he's like, yeah, I just like the shrine a lot. I hang out here and I sing to myself sometimes. She's like, well, sing for me. And so he does. And she basically like praises the heck out of him, and he is like a kink for praise. And so he decides that that's what he's going to do with his life. He's going to make people happy by singing. And so that's why he becomes an idol. And the application that his sister had sent off was for him to be an idol. So they promised to meet up when she gets back to Tokyo. And he's like, all right, one more recharge. And that's how they end his route, is that they kiss. It's adorable.
Smooch.
He's like my fave. I love him so much. So after his is over, which, by the way, his closing is a song by the Idol group, which is kind of cool.
Smart.
He's really smart. I was kind of shocked. So then you get like Dr. He's
the doctor
one
of
of the. No, he's just an. And he's in medical school. He's the next unlock, and he's a robot. Not literally. I wouldn't put it past Otome.
Robotic personality.
He's a robotic personality. So he's not.
When
really
you said he's a robot, I was like, all right, I will totally go with this. Sure.
That's the thing, is that I realized I said it like, Otome could make him a robot.
It's totally believable.
But he's very robotic in personality, and one of the things that is actually interesting about him, because there aren't many things that are interesting about him, he's my least favorite, by the way. And that's bad when you're below the guy who locked you in a room.
Right?
He has an obsession with getting licenses for things. So, like, he will randomly tell you, like, oh, I'm a licensed barbecuer, I'm a licensed this thing. And I'm like, why do you have licenses for all this? And he's like, I don't know, I just like doing that. And it's hilarious. Like, you'll just be going through the different routes, and he's like, yeah, I have a license for this. I'm like, what? Who are you?
I want to do that now.
It's so good. So he does this many, many times, that just throughout routes, he's like, yeah, I have a license in this. What? Okay. So he is a med student, and he also likes hiking.
He's got a license in hiking.
He does, actually. And he's really not interested in the face-to-face meetup, even though he's in the group. He's more just interested in exploring the town. So you go to the fireworks festival with him as well, as you do. And he's like, I've never been to a festival before. I don't know what to do. What do we do? And she's like, well, we eat this food. And he's like, why would we eat this food? I don't want to eat this. And he's like, well, we play this game. And he's like, I don't want to play this game. Why would we play this game? And she's like, no, we're going to scoop the goldfish. And then he like goes through this entire like mathematical equation of trying to scoop the goldfish. And then he scoops all the goldfish. And so the guy's like, no, you can't have all those. You can have 2. So he gets mad because he's like, why would they let me scoop all the goldfish if I can't eat all the goldfish? And
I don't know. This guy sounds pretty good.
And then he's watching this small boy play the gun game. And he's like, I don't know why he's holding the gun like that. He's going to fail. He shouldn't hold a gun like that. That's a terrible idea. And the kid's like, what do you mean I'm going to fail? And then just starts crying. And then everybody's looking at them because, like, he made a small child cry. So Ichiko gives the goldfish to the boy to be like, here, please stop.
I'm sorry.
And, yeah, so then you realize, like, he's terrible at human interaction and basically is a terrible human being.
Jesus.
Yeah. He is also from the town. And he has an interesting backstory. He's not as fun to date, but he has some really interesting things that come up. like one of them is that his dad was pretty high ranking in like the defense force.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point when he was a small kid, he saw his dad go into a restaurant, which where have we heard about a restaurant before?
I don't know. Where have we heard about a restaurant before?
And so his dad goes to the restaurant and he pulls a man out and he drags him to the forbidden zone and he sets him on fire.
What?
And so Suke, who is Dr. The entire time is like, my dad murdered somebody. He murdered somebody. Like, I don't know how to live with this. And so he started having like a really tense relationship with his dad. And I guess spoiler alert, that was Sora's dad that he took out and set on fire. Whoops. So I think he was also in middle school when he left, but before that, he was hiking in the woods trying to get away from his dad at one point, and he came across a flower field. And there was like this legend about these flowers in the town and how they were like these beautiful purple flowers with a unique scent, and that these flowers were tied to the revenants. And so he's like, I've seen them, they're real. And one thing that he mentions is that there was a man there and that he was an odd looking man, that he wasn't sure like what was wrong about his aura, but that he had to get away from him. So he was running down the like mountain area and he came across a girl who was a few years younger than him, 4 years younger. So I think he was like 13 at this point. And she had skinned her knee.
Ow.
And so I can handle this. So, he baby doctors it. And then he finds out like she's having issues walking on it. So he piggybacks her back down the mountain. And the whole time she's like, you're sweaty, mister. Also turns out this is Ichiko, which I'm sure you figured that out by now. Like, if there's ever a little, it's Ichiko. So that was when he decided that he wanted to become a doctor, was he realized that he liked helping people and that his dad was in the business of killing people, so he wanted to be in the business of saving people.
Makes sense.
So he's helping Ichiko go around and ask about her brother, and they end up at the shrine, and they start hearing like the defense force people, and so they hide in the shrine for a minute, and that's when he like full on grabs her butt in that CG, which like, go for it, buddy. Although it becomes a little bit weirder in a second because he's like spying on the defense force and he's like, just wait here for a second. And he looks out back and he's like, we have to go now. And she's like, what's wrong? He's like, that's my dad. That's my dad's body.
Whoops.
His dad's dead.
Not the family reunion you were hoping for.
Yeah. So, the problem here is that he never really reconciled with his dad and figured out what was going on. Mm-hmm. There was always the assumption that he would become part of the defense force group because like his dad was so high ranking, and they keep approaching him for this and he's like, nah man, I'm not interested. I'm a doctor now, even though he's still in med school. So basically all kinds of shenanigans ensue. Like it's bizarre. And he teams up with what's that other guy, the mullet, Yuzuki. He teams up with him and they're like, yeah, I'm not joining this group, but we're going to like fix this issue with the revenants. And which this route makes the last route make more sense of why he knew so much about how to figure out who a revenant was. Because if you remember, he was saying that Toa was not one. It basically like ends up coming to terms with the whole thing that his dad was not killing people but killing revenants, which like kind of shady gray area
Yeah.
there. And I forget exactly what happened because I really didn't care. And essentially, he writes down his phone number for each go and is like, "Hey, I told you earlier that I wanted to treat you to a scone, like a true scone. So when you get to Tokyo, call me and I'll get you a scone."
True scone.
Wow, buddy, that's romantic.
Thanks, my dude.
So, he sucks. He's terrible. But you find out a lot because you're finding out that one, the way that you kill revenants is that you throw salt on them and set them on fire, which is intense. You find out that Isora's dad was a revenant because one thing that had happened is that apparently Isora's dad had like a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And that his mom was running the restaurant by herself, and then his dad came back, and Asora mentions this at one point, that his dad came back and said, like, "I'm home," and he thought it was weird because he'd been gone for several days, and that some men came and pulled his dad out and they never saw him again. And so his dad had died of the heart attack and then came back as a revenant in order to like check on his family, and then was dragged out and killed as the revenant.
Yikes.
Yeah. So things are kind of crazy, right?
Just a little bit. I would say, clearly not full-born crazy, but we're getting there.
Oh, it's about to go off the rails. I hope you're ready. So now we have Mullet Yu. His name is Yuzuki. He runs the hotel and is the only heir of the like big family in town. And he's kind of a massive butthead. And he lives in a separate section of the hotel that is off limits to everybody, but Ichiko finds her way in there because of course she does. And finds out that he has a hobby of arranging flowers. Because okay, and he explains that like it was a thing that his grandma wanted to teach him, and that his grandma died before she could finish teaching him how to do it. So he does them, but he doesn't know if they're right, and so that's kind of sad. But then he gets mad at her and basically is like, "You're invading my privacy. You need to go, or else I'm going to fire you." Because by the way, she's working at the hotel at the moment because the middle schooler said that if she worked at the hotel since they were shorthanded, that she could stay for free. And she was only going to get to stay for like 3 days before that. And now she has like an extended period of time to look for her brother. So it's a wise idea. So anyway, at one point, middle schooler's like, "Hey, here's this soup. Will you go take it to the boss?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." And so she goes to take him the soup, and he's like sick as heck, but also naked. Not naked, but half naked. And so she babies him. Like she takes care of him all night. She doesn't sleep, and she like tries to keep his fever down, and he's like an entire butthead to her the entire time. I'm sure he said baka like 1,010 times.
Baka.
Baka. She talks about how like the first thing you're supposed to do when someone has a fever is like put your hands on them. I'm like,
What?
I don't think that's right. And then the middle schooler the next day is like, "Yeah, no, that's not what you do." He's like, that's quack medicine. Like, wow, wrecked. So this guy is basically like, "You need to stop investigating things. This is a terrible, terrible idea." One thing that happens with Yuzuki's route is that the opening FMV is different, extremely different. Everybody else's has subtle differences. His is very, very different because they all start with a woman who's covered in blood running to a payphone, and then someone saying like, some kind of crazy thing about like the river Styx or some, it's dumb. And then you don't hear anything else.
Right.
in his, you get the full story of what's happening. And you find out that it's him that's chasing her, that he is one of the like defense force people in the black cloak, and he's been tasked with killing her because she's a revenant. And she's like, really, all I want to do is call my husband. That's all I want to do. And then you can do whatever you need to do with me. And she's like, I don't have the urge to kill. I don't want to kill anybody. I just want to call him. So she calls her husband, and like he's freaking out because she's supposed to be dead, you know? And she says that the one thing that she needs to tell him is congratulations. And so that kind of stuck with Yuzuki, and he had planned to let her go because she said that she didn't want to kill anybody. She didn't have that urge. She just wanted to peacefully pass along, because you find out here, if revenants don't kill anybody, then they just disappear after a certain amount of time. And so that's what she wanted to do, is, you know, just disappear. And so he's like, okay, you know what? Do it. Just go. And she ended up getting captured by somebody else, and they did the whole salt fire thing. And so he starts questioning their methodology on this, and questioning like why the revenants exist. And he builds up a theory that like an unfinished business kind of thing. Which, you know, it's weird that this like mega the only one that seems to have some kind of empathy in this weird town. But anyway, you find out that there's a clash between him and his dad, because he was supposed to take over the defense force people, and he actually was in charge of them for a while, and now he calls him the water boy. His dad repeatedly calls him the water boy. And he's just running the hotel. He's not allowed to run the defense force anymore. And his dad is very, very interested in Ichigo. Like, very interested. And won't talk to Yuzuki unless she is present. Just interesting. Also, his dad's butt, so it makes sense where he got it. So she starts asking him, like, you know, what in the heck is actually going on? Which, you know, good question, girl, because I've been wondering this too. And he says that because he was not able to kill her, that he was basically demoted and is not allowed to have anything to do with the defense force. But that he's realized that, you know, there is some form of humanity in these revenants, and that there are better ways to deal with them. And so he is in a place in the town where he's like, I want reform. I want a different defense force. I don't want this. I don't want to just mindlessly keep killing them. So, I mean, like, he has a good idea, but not really going well. So they start asking around about the brother, and there's this, like, one cop in town who is owned by his family, basically. And they start asking about the brother. And he's like, I can't talk about this. You know I can't talk about this. I'm not allowed to talk about this.
Talk about it.
Basically, Yuzuki's like, you're going to talk about it. Whether you want to or not, you're going to. And so he tells him, like,
gonna talk about it.
He's like, yeah, there was a guy that was around here like a year ago, and he was a little weird. We didn't know who he was. And she's like, oh, you know, this is the first information I've gotten about him. And so that's a big hint. So at one point she goes into the boss's house and is looking for him and realizes that he's not there. And she gets kidnapped. So she wakes up in this like really dark house, and there's this shady character who's been in every single route, but you don't even really interact with him until this route. And he is an author that's been staying in the hotel. And he looks like an adult Shinji from Persona 3. Remember this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has kidnapped her and is using her as bait. he has realized at some point, before anybody else has apparently, that Yuzuki has feelings for her. Wow, I'm so shocked.
Who could have seen this coming?
And right. And so Yuzuki comes like charging in and is like, "No, you want me, not her, let her go." And the guy's like, "You're right, I do want you." And he ties him up. So his entire story is that he was the husband that the lady from the opening FMV called and congratulated, and he's like, "You killed my wife." And he's like, "No, man, I did not do it. I did not kill her. I let her go, and somebody else killed her. And like I have reformed my ideas on revenants because of your wife." And the interesting thing, you know, he has this theory about the unfinished business, and he asked at one point, like, why did she say congratulations? What was important about that? And he's like, it was the day that my first novel was published.
Dun-dun.
It's like, oh shit, that's awesome. But anyway, he's like brutally kicking him in the stomach and while this is going on. Once he realizes that he didn't kill his wife, he like lets him go and he's like, I'm done. I'm done with this town. This is the worst. And so he just kind of disappears and becomes like less important. He'll come back. So you end up getting like this crazy clash with basically the defense force and Yuzuki, who's trying to figure out something about her brother. And they end up in the Forbidden Zone as well, and they're being attacked by the cat mask guy. And you finally learn who the cat mask guy is, which I figured it out a long time before they ever revealed it. Because he's like the one young guy in the story who's not dateable. Young, relatively, because, like, thank God they don't have the middle schooler as a route. But so he's like this professional photographer who keeps trying to get Ichiko alone for modeling, is what he says. But I'm like, you're shady. I don't trust you. And it's true. He's shady. I don't trust him. And he's a revenant.
Quotes.
Yeah, he's a revenant. He's been trying to murder her, and he also murdered 2 other people from the defense force, the 2 ladies. And they asked him at one point, like, yeah, so also Suzuki's dad died. What about that? You know, he wasn't a woman. He's like, I didn't kill him. That wasn't me. Which, question marks, what? So anyway, there's this entire like reforming movement of not killing the revenants, but they take down this guy, and Yuzuki is redeemed, I suppose, in the eyes of the town, and he's like, I am remaking this town. We're gonna do something different with the revenants.
Yay!
And so, I mean, yay, that's pretty cool, which is good because then the next story, we go back to somebody. Once you get through Yuzuki's route, you unlock the true end for Toa.
Dun-dun-dun.
Which I was like, oh god, no. Toa's my favorite. What's happening here?
Because we had this running.
There's more.
We had this running joke going the entire time, like, oh, he's gonna betray you.
Right, because like
Otome.
Last time my favorite was the guy who was dead, and then this time I guess it's the same story, but yeah, Toa's dead. He's a revenant, and you find out that essentially he was exhausted on the way to the town because he'd been recording and trying to do his solo comeback, and he fell asleep at the wheel and ended up running into the river that is at the entrance of town, and so he's dead. But he came back as a revenant, and the reason that he wears like the coat thing is because it was his grandpa's and it brought him comfort, and he's like, apparently, you know, whatever makes you happy is what you come back as. And so he keeps saying that like he doesn't want to kill anybody, that he has like this real terrible feeling, and let me back up.
Beep beep.
So the at the end of Yuzuki's route, the photographer is like, there's another revenant in the hotel. And so when you go to Toa's route, everybody's in the hotel and everybody's like, so there's a revenant here because the guy's been taken out at the end of Toa's route as well. So he says the same thing at Toa's route, that there's another revenant in the hotel. And they're trying to figure out who it is, and Yuzuki has some plans. He's like, okay, one, just put your hand in fire. Everybody will just put their hand in fire, and whoever, turns into the purple dust is the revenant. Then we're done. We don't have to worry about it. And everybody's like, I don't really want to put my hand in fire. And he's like, okay, well, here's a new plan. Revenants don't like blood, right? And so that's the thing, is apparently revenants really don't like blood. So Yuzuki takes a butcher knife from because they're in the cafe, from the cafe, and stabs himself in the arm.
As you do.
Which is really extreme.
Just a tad.
And
you just do like a little cut.
And so you hear a scream, and there's a little bit where the other girl who's been working as a maid and is befriending Ichiko and everything, she's like, I'm the revenant. I did it. I killed Suzuki's dad. I'm really sorry. That was me. And Yuzuki's like, well, just take off your shirt and then we'll know for sure. And she's like, no, I'm a lady. I don't take off my shirt. And this is when you find out that Toa is the revenant. She's been covering for him because she's Toa's twin sister.
Dun, 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 dun.
She's the one who turned in the application so he could get out of town. And she's the one that he trusted completely. So she was trying to make sure that the concert would happen, and it turns out that that's where they find out that Toa is the revenant because he screams at the blood. And also they're colorblind, which is an interesting point. All the revenants are colorblind. But there's this one type of person that kind of glows to them, and we'll get more about that later. But anyway, the whole goal is that everybody in the hotel is like, all right, Toa's a revenant. He wants to run the concert. That's the only thing he needs to do. That's his unfinished business. He has to do the concert. And so they all band together. They're going to make it happen. The cop is there and he's like, all right, I'll help out. So he starts losing energy really, really rapidly because he's not killing anybody, which makes all of his things about recharging make a lot more sense, because he says that whenever he hugs her, kisses her, whatever, that he feels like he's a little bit recharged and can keep going. So in his first route, where it seemed a little quirky, it makes more sense now that that was actually something that was keeping him going. And so love is like batteries. And it gets to the point where he's like, I can't do a full concert. I don't have the energy. I can do one song. And the manager's like, we're going to have to cancel this because, the people are dying. He's like, no, we're not canceling. I have to do this. We have to do this. And the record company cancels it. All the musicians leave. All the stagehands leave. The manager is the only one left. And then he's like, why are you doing this for me? You're going to get in so much trouble. And she's like, yeah, but you're like a child to me, so I'm staying. So they're trying to keep the defense force away from him because they figured out at this point that he was a revenant, which we knew from his route earlier because they had lifted up his shirt and tackled him saying he was a revenant.
Right.
They knew, but Suzuki had kind of pulled him off for a bit. So they're trying to keep him away, and then it's Ichiko that's trying to keep him recharged enough for the one song, and then the cop who are in the room. And the cop's like, all right, dude, guess what? Betrayal time. I actually work for the defense force, and I have to kill you because you're a revenant. And he's like, dude, no, I just want to do the song and then disappear. Just let me do the song and disappear.
I like your version of the dialogue better.
Same. And so he's trying to like take Toa down, and everybody comes back because they realize that something's wrong. And the twin sister ends up jumping between them and gets stabbed. And she's like rapidly dying at this point. And, Toa's like, I can't do it now. Like, I can't go out there. My sister's dying. And she's like, no, you have to do this. You have to do this. And so he goes out and he performs the song, and he's doing it a cappella because his band is gone.
Right.
And then he sings a few notes of it, and then a piano comes in, and you find out that his manager is playing the piano for him, which was actually really cute. He performs his song, and then he turns into like purple flower petals and disappears because his revenant energy had run out at that point. So she kind of mourns him for a while. She goes back to Tokyo, and then she gets a letter in the mail, and it was a letter from Toa explaining the situation because he had originally not planned to tell her that he was a revenant, and that his plan was to go to the overlook where they were and to just disappear there. And I think I already mentioned this, but his twin sister was the one that actually murdered Suzuki's dad because he was after Toa, and she didn't want Toa to get taken down. So, whoops. So, it was really depressing. Also, the letter gave the phone number of the manager and told her to tell the manager where his body was. So that's kind of up. Anyway, I was really sad because I really liked him. He's dead. And then the one thing that I was very, very concerned about happened. Because Period Cube did this to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the entire time I was like, oh God, I hope that her brother's not a route. I hope that her brother's not a route. Please don't let her brother be a route. And her brother's a route.
Boo.
And it's a little creepier than you would expect. So you have no real choices in this route. It's essentially just straight up visual novel.
Right.
And so it starts off with him explaining that he's one of the earliest revenants and that he is the watcher of the flowers. And so that as long as the flowers are alive, he lives. And that there are certain souls that glow to revenants. And if you kill one of those souls, you live forever. And so he did that a long time ago, and so he lives forever. And Ichiko is one of those souls. So that's why all the revenants were like interested in her, was because she glowed and it would live forever. So when Ichiko was a little kid and was in the town, which is again really creepy, there was a revenant, a lady revenant, who was really, really interested in Ichiko because she realized that she would live forever if she killed her. So she kept trying to think of like ways to murder her. And he saw the revenant come out of a store with a bag, and he went in there and he's like, I want whatever that lady just bought. And so it's a knife. So he follows her and basically like interrupts her before she can kill Ichiko. He starts to protect her kind of, and he is living in the town at that moment as like a delivery driver. And he says that, he's lived many, many lives and that this is just his most recent iteration because, he lives forever. And, so he's protecting Ichiko, and she's like, I'm not supposed to get in the car with you, but you have a really cute design on the delivery truck, so we're going to go anyway.
Solid reasoning.
Yeah, he asks her, like, where are you staying? And she says that she's staying with her best friend, Hino, who lives in that town, which neither of them mentioned that they ever lived in that town. They just knew that they were friends since elementary school. And her brother decides at this point, like, for one, you can call me like Hanate, I think is how it's pronounced. And he's like, that's my name for you. I'm your brother. And as long as you're here, the revenants are going to come get you. So, which he doesn't tell her that, but he says it in his brain. So he just drives off with her. He leaves the town with her in this delivery truck and like doesn't tell Hino or anybody in the family like where they're going. And takes her back to Tokyo. And then like becomes her brother, which he clarifies that he can manipulate memories. So he manipulates her parents into thinking that yes, that's our son, and
the Chibiusa effect.
Yeah, and then manipulates Hino into thinking like, oh, you know, I never lived in that town, and same with her is that she never lived there either, and that they had just been friends since childhood. And so he lives with her as her brother, and it's so creepy because he starts talking about like how when she started hitting puberty that he like became attracted to her. And I was like, oh dear, no. And that like he wanted her in ways that were romantic and that he was like her brother, so it was kind of like a taboo type situation, which like yes, that's terrible, don't do that. And so it was around, she's 19 at the point when he disappears, and he gets a weird feeling about the flowers. And so he decides to go back to the town, which, you know, I was telling you earlier that Dr. had seen a creepy guy by the flowers. Remember?
Yes.
It was this guy before he was with Ichiko. Because he was like the watcher of the flowers. Right. So he goes back, and then like as he gets to the flower field, he realizes that the defense force has already found the flower field, and so they capture him and imprison him in Yuzuki's dad's basement. So he's been there for a year, and they're trying to get information out of him, and he won't give any. He's being tortured. It's pretty gnarly. But revenants heal really fast, so. So while he's sitting in the cell at one point, they mention, the people who are watching mentioned that the girl had come back, and he's like, oh God, no, Ichiko, you're not supposed to be here. What are you doing? And, so he murders those people and breaks out. Whoops. The second day they're at the hotel, she says that she sees this guy with a newspaper, but never sees his face. And turns out that it's him, and he had dropped the letter by the couch. And the middle schooler found it and saw that it was addressed to her, so he gave it to her. And he explains, like, come to the shrine that's in the Forbidden Zone. I'll meet you there. And so then she finds her brother, and she's like, oh my God, brother, you're here, you're alive, this is amazing. And so they stay there for a few days, and he gets concerned because he's like, you still have to eat and everything. I don't, but you do. And so she gets in this like, I just want to stay with you forever mode, and he's like, you know, it's not gonna, we can't do that. Like I would love to because I'm in love with you because I'm a creepy, but you know, you have needs like food and water. Those are important. And so in his route, the photographer guy also finds them and is after her because again, he would get eternal life if he kills her. And he knows about the brother guy and essentially how he's tied to the flowers. And so this big battle goes down, and Hino shows up, and you find out that he had entrusted Hino at one point before he left that he's like, Hino, I'm going to be gone. You protect my sister from now on. You're her protector. And so Hino wanted to live up to that. So Hino shows up. So you have Hino, main character Ichiko, brother, and then the Revenant who's been trying to murder her this whole time in the flower field. And they're just losing totally to this photographer. And so brother gets the idea of, okay, all revenants are tied to this flower field. What if we just got rid of the flowers? And she's like, no, I can't do this. I cannot do it because that will kill you. And he's like, shrug shoulders. Here's matches. And so she lights a match, but then she can't do it. And so Hino takes the matchbook from her and sets it all on fire. And so the photographer Revenant dies first because he's a younger Revenant and also doesn't have eternal life. And so like the brother is able to say bye and everything, and then he also disappears. And so Hino and Ichiko leave the town. They have some kind of closure. You know, they find out that, you know, he's dead and where he was and all that. And then you get like a shot in Tokyo that when she was a child, he gave her one of the flowers. And so there's like a hint that maybe he's going to come back. So that's kind of weird. But anyway, I hated that route and it sucked. And that's 7'Scarlet. And I know this went on forever, but that's a really intense story. Like, there are lots and lots of story beats on all these things. And, like, Toa technically has 2 routes.
Yeah, it sounds super, it felt like very, very involved. Like, not something,
Which is like,
not something you'd easily just condense down to, like, so here's what it's about.
yeah, no, there's no way. And, like, Atome is always kind of, like, off the wall crazy. But this is one of the craziest ones I've ever played. And probably right up there with Code Realize is one of my faves.
We need to get you a ranking of Atome.
I could probably give you one if you like gave me a second. Like not right this second, but like we could probably tweet it out later
We need to make like a board.
I'll do it.
Very
I'll
scientific.
Do it. We'll do like scientific Al's ranking of Atome like as we continue to release Atome, because you know there's another one coming out.
Yeah, like this month, right?
This month.
At the end of this month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we will throw more on the board.
So, but this one, like the story was really, really good. And, you know, I didn't like all the guys, but you don't really have to like all the guys. A lot of the games are like that. Like Van Helsing exists.
Yeah.
But even if I didn't like the guy, the story with the guy was really, really good.
Yeah.
Every single one of them had a fantastic story. So it was awesome. I really liked 7'Scarlet.
It's the Al Atome seal of approval.
And I got to date like this weird nerdy dude. Like he talks about how much he likes anime and manga, and he's like got the fluffy hair and he's adorable. He loves kitties. And then he's dead.
He dies.
It's so tragic. Everybody I love dies.
Well, after all that Atome, let's talk about some predictions real quick.
All right.
For Atome 3. It doesn't really work. So yeah, like we talked about, like well,
our datables are now Ubisoft and Sony and Microsoft.
If you are listening to this as immediately comes out, you have 20 minutes until EA's press conference starts, so...
Oh, snap. Better get on it.
Better get on it.
Get some snacks.
So EA is probably just going to be typical EA. Like, there's not a whole lot that would probably be really surprising here. I mean, they're going to talk Battlefield 5. People get all uppity about that stuff again. Sports, of course, so we'll probably see FIFA 19... Madden 19, NBA Live 19.
All those 19s.
I think that's... They probably wouldn't show hockey. So I think that's...
I didn't even know there was a hockey game.
Yeah. I think that would be all the sports they do. That sounds about right, unless I'm forgetting something. I think Anthem's supposed to show up, the new BioWare game that they showed last year.
Makes sense.
That looks Destiny-like. Maybe a couple of like indie titles, because I know they have like their indie initiative that they usually show off like something every now and then. Because I think that was like, they showed off like Inside a couple years ago, and then A Way Out was last year.
Yeah.
I know people are gonna keep anticipating and hoping that we see hashtag Skate 4. But I mean, I would be real jazzed if that showed up, but I still don't think it's likely.
Yeah.
But the only way I can see Skate 4 actually like working is it literally becomes Skate 4 featuring Tony Hawk. Because Tony Hawk's out of his Activision deal, so he can show up anywhere.
That's
and
true.
I think if they did that, like, it would definitely sell a lot of copies. It would
Do
justify
people even
making
know
it.
who Tony Hawk is anymore?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if like the youngins knew.
I would assume so. Like, considering his name's been out there for decades in terms of at least video game skateboarding, so.
Yeah, but he's probably like my mom's age.
I mean, yeah, but it's still a marketable name, I would say.
Fair. He's synonymous with it.
Right. I think they have like there's some other Star Wars game they have in the making, right? I want to say there is. Unless it got canceled.
Honestly, I think that probably one thing that's going to happen with EA is that they're going to try and get some like goodwill back because so many people are mad at them about Battlefront.
That's true.
So I think there's going to be something that they're trying to do with Star Wars to like bring those people back in.
Yeah.
That's my prediction anyway, because it blew up in their faces so bad.
That would make a lot of sense too.
Oh, it would. I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't expect anything like super groundbreaking here. Just probably like a lot of like the things you would expect at an EA press conference. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not like thinking that they're gonna come out and deliver us the most amazing new game ever, but
it's gonna be what you expect. It's consistent.
Yeah.
Microsoft's going to be interesting. I mean, they usually are because, like, they, especially in the recent years, they're the ones that are like, hey, we got a butt ton of games. Let's talk about them.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Microsoft is usually kind of an interesting presser to watch. Because they don't have the same kind of like mega exclusives that Sony has, but they do some really crazy things, which I fully expect that we're gonna have like a Gears show up because that is the rumor. Like their thing. Oh, okay, yeah.
Because there's like obviously there's been a lot of leaks. One of them was like a Walmart Canada site that showed off like a lot of games that have kind of started to come out like, oh, these are actually maybe happening. Gears was on that list, and I've also heard that like Halo 6 might show up as well, which seems kind of crazy that Microsoft might be thinking of doing a Gears and a Halo in the same year.
Oh, that seems like a bad idea.
But
that's kind of like.
But for a company that needs exclusives, like it might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, what else do they have?
Yeah. Also, I've heard that like there might be 2 Gears of War games, and one of them is Gears of War Battle Royale.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's interesting though.
So maybe it's going to be like, hey, Gears is next year, but here's this new thing, this side thing that we'll give you for this year, and then here's Halo 6.
That makes sense to me. Is to do Halo 6 this year with the side Gears, and then do the actual Gears next year. That makes total sense.
Because Gears 4 was like what, like 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So it's not that.
It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. So, and it's also going to be interesting as well because like they don't have to talk about the Xbox One X this year.
Correct.
Don't have to get all up in those vapor chambers.
Oh my god, they do some good stuff with indies.
Yeah,
usually,
they really do.
I'm interested to see what Microsoft does with indies this time.
So yeah, like I think those are going to be a safe bet. Is Halo and Gears. I'd be interested to see if Crackdown 3 shows up. Considering the last thing I heard about that game is that it just got infinitely delayed again.
Yeah.
So
I'm not banking on it, but. Shrug shoulders. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
I think also on that Walmart Canada thing was like there's going to be a new Forza Horizon, which that makes sense since last year was Forza Motorsport. So obviously this would be the next Forza Horizon game. I can't think of anything. I can't think of other stuff that was on that list. But yeah, that'll be like a lot of like like I said, like they show a lot of games at their press conference. So it'll be a lot of stuff that like here's our first party stuff, here's our third party stuff. So. All of that, just like if Sony is going like all first party this year, like it would probably make sense if like Black Ops 4 shows up here, even though Call of Duty's had more of like a deal with Sony recently. So maybe that,
Yep.
or maybe a little bit of like the new Assassin's Creed. So like maybe like a big third-party game essentially.
And that would be smart because with Sony not really focusing on that, like it would be their chance to say like, hey, we have this, and people will kind of associate it with their name.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's weird because like, we're not really big Xbox One players. Like we both have the console, but it's like we're not necessarily playing that the most. But Microsoft's kind of like the one that's like the most interesting out of like all the press conferences this year. Like just being like, okay, what are they going to show?
Yeah, I mean, I'm real intrigued to see what they have. And like you said, I don't even remember the last time I turned on my Xbox One, but we have it, and they do some interesting things. We'll see.
Later that night on Sunday is Bethesda, which obviously we know a few things that they're going to be showing. Rage 2 got leaked in that Walmart Canada thing, and then they were just like, well, here you go. This is the thing we're making, so...
Yeah.
And then also they'll definitely be showing off Fallout 76.
Yep.
Which that is definitely a thing. Mm-hmm. After the Kotaku reports about how that's basically a online style game in the vein of like Rust and those survival RPG style games, which it makes sense, Fallout 4 having like that base building stuff and that, and them trying to like build off of that, but like not my cup of tea at all. Yeah,
mega pass.
Yeah. Probably see some maybe new stuff on like Elder Scrolls Online, considering I think that thing's still a big deal. This thing that I have up says like there might be stuff for Prey, which that would make sense if like there's a DLC for that. I wonder if they would show off something that maybe isn't going to come out this year.
It would be, if they're smart, which Bethesda isn't always smart, they would show off a new Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, like I was thinking like maybe they show off that, or what if we got a tease for a certain game called Doom 2?
I mean, that would be smart too.
No pun intended.
With all the rhetoric though, with like everybody's making fun of Skyrim at this point. Everybody's making fun of Skyrim and all the re-releases. So like a way to combat that would be like, here's a new one.
Yeah. There was also that rumor that like Fallout 3 is going to get ported to new consoles like Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. And that's what a lot of people thought that Fallout 76 stream was going to be. So maybe that still is a thing, but they're just going to save it for this.
Oh, maybe.
But I would be interested to see what a new Elder Scrolls is. Like I like Skyrim when I played it back in 2011 and then never went back.
Like, I've played Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, and I like all of them a lot. So, I mean, like, I'd be intrigued to see what it is, but it would be really smart. Again, it's kind of like a goodwill move that it would be smart if they at least teased it.
Yeah. And
it may not necessarily have to come out this year, but, like, teasing it and saying, hey, this is in the works is smart.
And it would just be interesting to see, like, what Skyrim fans would think of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I know someone who has literally played multiple versions of Skyrim and owns multiple versions of Skyrim and has beat all of those multiple versions of Skyrim. So it'd be real interesting to see, like, like what those types of fans would think of, like, okay, here's the next iteration in the Elder Scrolls franchise that's not Skyrim.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, obviously, Bethesda isn't like, hey, we're going to show off a ton of stuff, because usually they don't. But
they don't.
They have some stuff that we know and hopefully some stuff that we don't know. It'll be pretty interesting to see. Monday, starting off bright and early at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, is our fine friends at Square Enix.
Kingdom Hearts. That's all it is.
I don't think it's going to be all it is, but it's going to be a big majority of it. It's going to be Kingdom Hearts.
It's going to be Kingdom Hearts.
Release date. Do we get a release date? I say yes.
I think that they have to at this point. If they don't give a release date, then people are going to riot.
Yeah, I think you have to do that at this point. Maybe
I'm hoping that we get like some more information on World Ends With You for the Switch.
Yeah, they might do that. But I mean, it is just like a re-release, like, so.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you get like a little bit of information on it, that'd be rad. But I mean, we know for a fact this is going to be like the Kingdom Hearts show with other stuff.
Yeah.
Like Octopath Traveler might be on there.
Oh right, yeah, that's true. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, because Square Enix does have a Western development team.
Right.
So that'd probably be there.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Is Dragon Quest XI a Square Enix game?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that might show up. But I think some of the bigger questions is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I don't think it
Is
shows.
it gonna be there?
I think
I don't think
if
it
they
will.
show it, it's just like a teaser. It's nothing important.
I don't think so because there was the information that came out recently that they basically had to like restart the entire thing. So I think that it would be better for them to give a release date for Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
And like focus on that to try and get people to realize like, oh, this is eventually going to come out because it's been forever.
Right. I think if they do show anything, it's not going to be like anything definitive. Like maybe just like another little, here's a teaser of what combat and the game's going to look like, but nothing like, oh, this is when it's coming out or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely no date. I don't suspect there will
unless
be a
somehow
date.
Like work on that game has come along super smoothly since that report came out that they switched development teams and they're like, hey, first episode later this year. Or if they're still doing that episodic thing. But I doubt that. Like, that's a slim chance. But it would be surprising if that happened. Maybe we...
Like I said...
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I was going to say that I feel like we'll probably get more information on Octopath, because that makes sense.
Yeah. Something that could be interesting, they have an Avengers game they're making.
Really?
Yeah, they teamed up with Marvel.
Huh,
Square
I
Enix.
didn't know that.
I think this is more like the Western side of Square Enix, so
right, but
they
still,
have that in the works, so maybe we see something of that.
Maybe because like Spider-Man was a big deal. Was that a year ago or 2 years ago?
That was last year, but
okay,
that's just a Sony thing. So
oh no, but I'm saying that like
Marvel stuff's big.
At E3 they use the big superhero stuff because it gets hype.
Yeah. Last thing about Square Enix. How much of a percentage do we see Final Fantasy 16?
Do you think we're even going to get anything on that?
I would say 0.1. If anything, we would see Final Fantasy 15 or 14 DLC.
DLC, because there's been talks about like more DLC for 15 that would include Luna Freya and Arden.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we're more likely to get some of that, as long as it's not freaking like fishing game again. But I feel like big story DLC packs for 15 is more likely than anything on 16, right. In my opinion, anyway.
Later in the day at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 Eastern is our good friends at Ubisoft.
Girlwood.
Time for hashtag Girlwood. We do know Assassin's Creed Odyssey is going to be there.
Right.
The sequel to Super Mario Odyssey.
Where Mario kills everything.
Yep. And then he pushes everyone around in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
Division 2 is probably likely because I think got leaked. That Skull and Bones game, the pirate ship game, that they're like, hey, remember Assassin's Creed 4? Well, we just made that into a game.
Mm.
What else? They might show...
Is there a Just Dance there?
Just Dance is 1,000% likely. They might show a bit about The Crew 2, even though that game comes out like a few weeks after E3. So maybe just be like a little bit like, hey, remember this? Is this coming out?
It's a good reminder.
I played that beta. It's weird. I don't think I've ever played a sequel with such a tonal shift before, because like The Crew 1 is like this weird crime game where like you're in a car gang, and like you get wrongfully convicted, and then you work with the FBI to like take out the people who wrongfully convicted you. And then The Crew 2 is just like, hey, we like Forza Horizon, so we just basically made that.
Nice.
So that's weird. I wonder if they'll do anything with Rainbow Six. I think like the 20th anniversary of that series is this year or something. But
God, I forgot about Rainbow Six.
They've been going hard on Siege. Like they just keep constantly updating that game. So like,
yeah,
I wonder if they would even think of like making a new game or just be like, hey, here's another update for that, or like the same thing for like For Honor. Cause like that's another like online procedural game that they just keep updating and everything. Since this is now an Assassin's Creed year, I wonder if they would do anything with Watch Dogs, because that was the big thing before the Assassin's Creed leak, was like probably it's going to be a Watch Dogs year. But now, since this is an Assassin's Creed year, I wonder if they'll do that or not.
Maybe like a blip trailer of like it's in production or something. Maybe.
Do you think we see like? I know like they have that Donkey Kong DLC coming out, but like maybe like a new Mario and Rabbids DLC trailer.
Oh, I would love that.
Or maybe like some other new Nintendo Ubisoft crossover.
I want it to happen. I'm not sure the likelihood of it happening.
Right.
I think we're more likely to get like a DLC trailer than an actual new game. But like after them blowing my mind with that game, like I'm for it.
Yeah. Does Beyond Good and Evil 2 show up again? Or is that too much to be like, hey, back-to-back years?
I don't think it'll be there.
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening.
What about our friend Rayman? No.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I would doubt it.
I mean, like, those Rayman games that came out were good. They should make another one.
The Rayman series is always like, kind of like in the back burners. Like, hey, we have this, but like, eh.
Yeah, they don't care.
It's not like we're gonna promote it like our other titles.
Yeah, no.
Then the final thing for Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern, is Sony, which they have pretty much got out ahead of this and been like, hey, this is going to be like a Nintendo Direct style thing.
Yeah.
And they also said, like, we're recording this on Tuesday, and basically all their announcements start Wednesday afterwards. Like, Wednesday until, I think, Saturday or Sunday, they're going to announce, like, a new game daily. So, like, one game per day, essentially. So, like, I think one's a new game from Worldwide Studios, one's like a new PS4/PSVR type game, and then the others are just like, hey, here's some new stuff that we haven't announced yet. So basically, I think like kind of like their pre-stream they did last year for the press conference where like, here's some stuff, or like they announced Undertale and stuff like that.
Right, that makes sense.
And that was like the more exciting part of that press conference. But they have essentially said...
Didn't they have like hanging bodies in the last one?
Yep, they sure did.
Yeah, that was unsettling. They shouldn't do that again.
So basically, their entire direct press or whatever you want to call it is going to be about 4 first-party games. It's going to be Death Stranding, Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima, and The Last of Us Part 2. Which makes sense, but
it makes sense, but it's kind of boring.
It's so weird that they've gone from like the big press conference where like they're just balls out and here's a bunch of indie devs, here's a bunch of third-party stuff, to like the latter years where it's just like, here we're just going to get up on stage and show you a bunch of trailers.
Yeah, that sounds really boring.
Yeah, like, I guess it makes sense that like more companies are going with like the Nintendo Direct style, but Sony just being like, we're just going to devote this to first-party stuff, like that's not fun. Like, show more stuff.
But especially you saying like, this is what we're going to talk about. Like, oh, cool. Like, what people like about E3 is surprising.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if they'll even sneak anything else in there. Like, there was that From Software game that showed up at the Game Awards that they teased that had, like, no name, no consoles tied to it. So I wonder if this shows up at all. Like, what press conference and what it is. Because there was the rumors that, like, oh, maybe this is Bloodborne 2, but, like, there's also rumors like it's not Bloodborne, it's not Dark Souls, it's something else entirely. So I would like to see that game show up somewhere, but like I don't know where it would show up.
Where it would be.
Especially if the Sony one's just like we're first party only, that's it.
Yeah.
But it will be interesting to see like just what these new games are. Like obviously Death Stranding is going to have some weird trailer because it's a Hideo Kojima game.
Oh my god.
Hey, maybe Spider-Man will look better than it did last year.
Oh, it looked like trash.
It's so...
I better get ready to strain my eyeballs because I usually roll my eyes a lot at this kind of stuff. Anyway, go ahead.
It's so weird how like I keep seeing on Twitter people like, oh man, that swinging looks so good. The combat looks so good. It's like, you guys haven't played it yet. Like, you don't know if it feels good or not. It may look good, but it doesn't mean it feels good. It's so weird. Ghost of Tsushima is an interesting thing because they've only briefly talked about it. I think it's the new... Sucker Punch game, but it's also like a samurai style game.
Oh, that seems weird for Sucker Punch.
So it seems interesting. And then obviously Last of Us Part 2, which hopefully it's not like another super hardcore gore inducing trailer that showed off at like Paris Games Week where no one knew what it was until like him was like, oh, this is the Last of Us 2 trailer? Okay, well we just saw this lady get an axe into her arm for no reason.
Ugh.
But obviously we finished up on Tuesday. 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern, and it is the fine folks at Nintendo, the Nintendo Direct E3 thing. they have gone out in front of us and said, hey, we're going to be talking about Smash Brothers, which obviously that's
Yeah.
what you would definitely say. Like, hey, we will be talking about this game that obviously a lot of people are very excited for.
It's smart.
I doubt the Pokemon stuff shows up here. Like,
No, because they just did.
yeah,
the
exactly.
conference.
So like, if anything, it would show up on like their Treehouse stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Treehouse more so than like the main trailer stream.
Because that's still a thing where they can announce new things that they don't show in the direct, because that's usually what they do.
Yeah.
I guess we would see Metroid Prime 4 here.
That would be a good idea since the last time we saw it, it was just the logo.
And there was that recent leak of like a booth thing, of like, it was like a like getting graphics for like the booths for E3, and it was like 9 games. Like some of them were obviously, one of them on there was like Mario Tennis, like, so that makes sense. One of them was Dragon Ball Fighters.
Okay.
One of them was
Pass.
one of them was the most popular game in the world, Fortnite.
Oh Lord.
Which makes sense that they would put that on there. And then a
Yeah.
couple of other stuff on there as well, like a sequel to Overcooked, Paladins, the weird like Overwatch kind of ripoff game, and then some other stuff as well. So maybe if anything like that would probably get brought up as well, if that's true.
Yeah.
I would be interested to see what that Dragon Ball game looks like on a Switch, because it would definitely look a little bit different. But like that's a smart get to put on there. What else? The Yoshi game.
The cute Yoshi
Yeah,
game.
that makes sense that would show up here.
Yeah, because they had gameplay last time, so we might get a date or something for that.
There was the rumor of like a Star Fox racing game at one point.
I heard about that.
So maybe that shows up here. What else could Nintendo show?
Fire Emblem.
Oh yeah, I guess there is a Fire Emblem game in development, so yeah, that would make sense too. What about Animal Crossing? Can I interest you in some Animal Crossing?
I'd be more interested in Fire Emblem, but Animal Crossing is a good idea.
Yeah, I feel like Animal Crossing is kind of a stretch, but I would still very much enjoy it. Probably some like more like interesting third-party stuff as well.
Yeah.
They're probably weird, like, here's a 3DS section, because we still think the 3DS is going to be a big thing. But what do you think of anything would be like their surprise, like, hey, we're like kind of like that Metroid Prime 4 thing last year.
Ooh.
Like, we're making this, but we're not in any way going to be showing you anything from it.
I mean, I feel like Zelda and Mario are going to be on the back burner at this point.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think of, like if they were doing something Zelda related, is if they were doing like more of the handheld style for the Switch or the 3DS. Because sometimes they do that on like off years.
Yeah.
But I can't see Mario or Zelda really having a giant presence here. And it's hard to tell like what would be a big shocker on that, because like Smash is already done, so like they can't throw that at people. I mean, I guess they could throw that at people. Do you think we'll see any more of Bayonetta?
Ooh, that's a good question. I forgot that was a thing that was happening. That might be a thing that shows up.
It would be nice to see some more Bayonetta.
Yeah.
I'd like to see where it's going right now. Other than that, man, I can't think of anything.
Do you think they talk about their online stuff here, or they just...
Ooh, I don't know that they would do that on here. I feel like that's
something they can do at another point, like closer to launch.
Yeah. I feel like this is more just going to be like games.
And then finally, the ever-present question for a Nintendo Direct. Mother 3 question mark?
Mother 3. Man, one year they're going to announce Mother 3 and people are going to be, wait, what?
They're not going to believe it.
They're not going to believe it because it's always the joke that Mother 3 is going to show up. And then like once Mother 3 actually shows up, they're going to be like,
Here is the surprise that they're doing this year. Mother 4 for Switch.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Speaking of Smash Brothers, obviously they're doing that. I heard a rumor, which is a
Is
rumor.
this the GameCube controller?
It's not the game control thing, which that is a thing.
thank
But apparently, I read a rumor about 2 of the guest characters.
Uh-oh.
One of them is a returning Solid Snake,
Okay.
and the other is Steve from Minecraft. Which, granted, rumors. Take this with a grain of salt. Yeah. I just thought that was very funny. Do you think there's any like interesting characters that they put in Smash Brothers that they announce here? Like obviously you got your like core group of characters, but like any type of like weird guest characters that they throw in?
Yeah, that's the hard thing is that like usually Nintendo adds more characters, and like last time they had Cloud, which was kind of interesting.
Cloud, Bayonetta, like Ryu.
Who did they throw in there? Like I already told you that I think it would be great if they put like Rex in there, but since they have Shulk,
and they still can. It's not like they don't have like they have a hard limit. Like one person per character. Fire Emblem.
No, because I mean Fire Emblem and Mario and Zelda and all them, like they have multiple characters. So I mean it's possible, and it would be cool because Rex has like the different blades that he could bring in, so it could kind of be like a like the cross tag thing that we've been playing.
Yeah. I would also like to just throw out there Tsubasa from Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Basically anything from Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Maybe a Tokyo Mirage Sessions 2 would be awesome. Or, just port Tokyo Mirage Sessions to the Switch.
Oh, man. If you could have, like, any guest character, like, in the vein of, like, Ryu, Cloud, Bayonetta, like, a non-first-party Nintendo character, who do you put in there? That's, like, relevant.
Oh, God. This is hard.
I guess it's also someone that can't be like a first-party Sony or Microsoft character.
Right.
A big third-party character. Guy from Fortnite.
Mechanical hand lady from Battlefield. Jokes. Shoot. Who would I put in there?
I've got my answer.
All right. Give me yours so I can have an idea.
It's gonna be a new challenger approaches, and you're just gonna hear, "Are you okay?"
Buster Wolf.
Welcome Terry Bogard to Smash.
That's amazing. I mean, he already has a moveset.
Yeah, I would buy Smash Day 1 if they put Terry Bogard in it. You heard it here first.
Man, I mean, I'm still gunning for Uncle Amiibo.
Oh man, they really need to make Uncle Amiibo.
They do. I mean, like, they had Rob in there, so, like, Uncle Amiibo works. I don't know. Like, who would I pick?
Sailor Moon.
Ooh, that'd be cool. Wouldn't happen, but it'd be cool. I don't know the answer to this.
Because I kind of already, like, run the gambit of, like, characters you would think, like, wild characters that you would throw in a game. Like, oh, they've kind of done it.
Yeah. They could put the Guardian from Breath of the Wild in there.
Yeah.
I think Uncle Amiibo is a better option, in my opinion.
I like Uncle Amiibo as an option.
Man, I don't know. All right, you know what? I'm going to bring it full circle.
Okay.
You know who would be a good pick that they would never put in there in 1,010 years?
Tell me.
Lupin from Code Realize.
They should do that. I mean, that is a series coming to the Nintendo Switch.
It is.
What better way to promote it?
And, like, Japan would be about it, so...
I would love that. That would be amazing.
I mean, you could do some cool movesets because he has so many of the, like, tricks up his sleeve, and he's got the cane as his main weapon. It's...
Wow.
Bringing this full circle, man.
Oh, man. So, yeah, that's our E3 predictions.
That one will never happen, but
it'd be great.
Uncle Amiibo should.
So, yeah, look forward to all the fun stuff that comes out of E3. We'll probably be talking about all the announcements and everything next week, so...
That's what I figure is next week will be the actual E3 episode.
We'll break down everything that happened and give our thoughts and reactions to everything, all the press conferences and all that jazz.
As we did last year.
But that will do it for this episode. So if you'd like more from us, head on over to seasonallycheckup.com or scc.cool, where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like the Seasonal Anime Checkup and Jared and Al Watch, where, hey, this past week we debuted season 2 of Jared and Al Watch.
Oh my God.
So you now know what we're watching. You can join us.
Subscribe to that feed.
And you can join us and listen to us talk about school idols.
Heck yeah.
You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. You can find my latest piece on Crunchyroll.com. That's a website about anime.
Wow.
You can find Al at anladium.com. She has columns and reviews on her site as well. Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/animecheckup. That's where we do Twitter. And you can support us on patreon.com/SACOVA if you would like to give us $1 and support our very podcast. So next week, we will talk about some E3 stuff.
We will.